Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you who haven't watched this before, this is where I take 10 questions from the subscribers from our community. Those of you that don't know, the subscribers are the portion of our community that kick in a little extra money every month to allow us to do enhanced community content. So things like this show, 10 for the Chairman. We have a Jump Point magazine that's 50 to 70 pages every month, plus Around the Verse and other stuff that we do in general for sort of community, sort of behind the scenes at CIG, and a whole bunch of other stuff that allows us to do a higher amount of communicating with everyone out there, which is brilliant. So thank you very much to the subscribers. For them doing that, we take 10 questions that we poll from the subscribers every week, and I answer them here. But before I'm going to get started, a couple of things. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of citizen cards sitting here, which is kind of cool, which I'm in the process of signing. Part of the result of being doing all right, and lots of people wanting to become part of the community. So we've got some cards I'm signing, and there'll be a little surprise for some people around about Gamescom. And then the other thing that's kind of cool is we have the first version back from the people that were going to be making Constellation models. So this is the high-end 10-inch model, and it's actually made by the same people that do like the die-cast cars for Porsche and stuff like that. But it's really pretty cool. It's a combination of die-cast and like high-end ABS metal, and all bits of things move. So like for instance, the engines move, or the cargo bay comes down, or the gun turrets move, or if I do it here, you can see we can go back into fast flight mode, and I can push it back and push those to fast flight mode, and there you go. So anyway, it's pretty cool. It's really quite spectacular. So I'm looking forward to having this on my desk, and I think the people that have bought the higher end packages will get this. If I think there's enough demand, we may considering having the ability to get a 10-inch model separate, but that's kind of up to Sandy. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, everyone around the office really thought this was awesome and cool, and it's actually it's cool to have it in a computer, but it's also very cool to have it sitting in front of you and be tactile like this. So they've done a really cool job. So anyway, there you go. So let's get to the questions. All right, first question comes from Dirty Bird, who is asking, I was wondering if in the future we would have ground crews working in our hangars. It would be pretty cool if some of our ships had maintainers crawling on and around them. I'm not 100% sure about the hangar, but we've actually discussed when you've landed on planets and you're getting your ship repaired or worked on, there'll be sort of like a repair bear, and from the repair bay, sorry, not repair bear, a repair bay, and off in the distance you'll sort of see either little robots or maybe even some ground crew moving around and doing sparking and welding. And long term, we'd kind of like to try and get a little bit more of sort of that ambience animation in. So potentially, if it works really well for the sort of repair stuff, and we can have it in a nice sort of modular way, we would probably roll it back out to the hangar. But right now we're not planning on necessarily having that in the hangar, but definitely having sort of ambient animations happening when your ship's getting repaired or retrofitted and stuff. So so kind of in those directions, kind of cool. Next question comes from Sam Corwin, who asks, will there be some sort of recognition for the player organizations that contribute the most to the Synth World project? I think this would be a great way for the UEE to generate more interest in the project, and can the project be completed in game? So that's actually a pretty cool idea. I mean, I don't think we were necessarily planning on players actually contributing to the Synth World project, because it was sort of this thing that was built and then sort of abandoned because they ran out of money. But one of the big things we want to do is sort of have a lot of sort of player generated initiatives. So I mean, I know there's already the sort of Operation Pitchfork that's going on, and so in some levels, even though we were going to have Vandal Raiders and Vandal Areas of Space, that was already part of our sort of plan in the universe, a place where you have engagements, we may actually put some content in that allow people to sort of go and sort of fight the good fight, so to speak. And I think the Synth World could be something along those lines too. So we will take that into consideration, because we're definitely looking for sort of big picture things that organizations can contribute to. So we sort of have lots of different things you can do in the game. So either you can just do your solo stuff running around, or you in small groups, or there's got to be sort of bigger objectives for larger groups of people. And so that's a pretty cool idea. So we'll think about it. But that's something to definitely throw into the persistent universe pot, so to speak. Okay, next question comes from Nian Fur, who asks, as the Aurora can dock in space with a constellation, can the constellation jump to another system with an Aurora or two docked and take them with it, allowing non-jumped equipped Auroras to be transported to another system? So that's a pretty inventive idea, definitely thinking outside of the box, but I would say no. So we don't let you, when you're docked to another ship, we do not let you fly, or definitely don't let you go into a jump point or something like that. So, I mean, basically what happens is you have to move your two ships close together, and then you bring them in and dock, and when they're docked, you sort of hang in space and you can transfer between the ships, but you're not really able to sort of be performing, space flight or space maneuvering. Okay, next question comes from Falcon, who asks, I know I would fly every ship very differently, and while I know you are adding custom key bindings to Arena Commander soon, I was wondering whether or not you plan to allow us to save certain configurations to different ships instead of having to change the layout every time we switch. So that's actually a pretty good suggestion. We're definitely working on the whole custom key binding stuff, and we'll let you save that off to a profile. So what you'd really want to do there is have a profile that could be bound to a ship. So that would just be an extra level of sort of customization that can happen there. I mean, I certainly think we'll let you save off several profiles, and then you could easily reload the bindings for constellation profile or the Aurora profile, and then the next level would be to automate that. So I think that's a good suggestion. Not sure that's going to be there day one, but longer term I think we possibly would consider doing that, because that would make things easier for people that like to have different setups for different ships. Okay, next question comes from Swift Omnium, who asks, has there been given any thought to MPC Crew after the multi-crewed ship DFM release later this year? Is it only possible to fly your, let's say, your Cutlass with your friends, or is there a way for us to hire MPC Crew somehow? I know this is the idea for the PU, but what about the dogfight module specifically? Longer term, potentially in Arena Commander, we may let MPC Crew be in the multi-crewed ships. I mean, right now, the first stage of it would have to be your friends only. The development of sort of the multi-crewed sort of NPCs is actually down on the Squadron 42, Foundry 42 side, because they obviously need to do a lot of that for flying aboard the big ships in the Squadron 42 campaign, where most of the other crew members are actually NPCs. So they're sort of charged with leading development of sort of the big cap ship systems, the cap ship setups, and also sort of how NPCs move around and operate those ships. And so when that's at a certain point, we would probably fold it back in a little bit to Arena Commander to test it, and then obviously later on it'll be to the persistent universe. Okay, next question comes from Christals, who asks, how short are short-range fighters? Are we talking extra limited flight times of under 1 hour, or so, making them more of carrier-based fighters, or otherwise reliant on a mothership, or several hours and capable of going out and being used independently without relying on a nearby home base? Further, are these short-range fighters capable of leaving the system they are launched from? So I'd definitely say short-range fighters could not leave the system they're launched from. They would not be jump capable. And then sort of the short-range fighter would depend. I mean, something like the Merlin, which is probably the example of the smallest and the shortest ranger one, really couldn't operate that for that long outside of being redocked back at the Constellation and refueled and rearmed. Some of the military sort of short-range or lighter fighters would obviously have a lot more range than that. So it sort of depends on a ship basis, but I would definitely say a definition of a short-range fighter is one that can't do inter-system jumps. Okay, next question comes from Raid, or Raddy, I don't know how you want to pronounce that, R-A-D-E, Raid, or Rad. Please, can you shed some light on the shipbuilding process and maybe help us understand why the ships that are seemingly complete or very close to cannot be placed in our hangars? Well, we do shed a fair amount of light on the shipbuilding process, especially in Jump Point, which I'm assuming that you would read because you're a subscriber asking a question. But, I mean, to be less flippant about it, there's a huge amount of work that goes into building the ship. So to actually give you a good example, like if everyone's watched the Next Great Starship, I have to watch these little cards here. If everyone's watched the Next Great Starship and you saw how the gunship that won, I mean, that's essentially was about a 5-month process from design to building it. And even that ship that may have looked great in the final Next Great Starship requires a couple more months worth of work to actually get it in the hangar, and then it would be more work beyond that to get it into spaceflight, because beyond just building the ship in 3D and modeling and texturing it and getting it basically into the engine, it has to be set up in a certain technical way for the engine. So the hierarchy of the sub-objects of the ship, animations have to be hooked up. They have to be hooked up to the characters, your main, your sort of the default characters animation. So when you go in, you sit into seats, you go through doorways and do all that. So there's a huge amount of technical setup that comes with that. So I would say that our ships take probably from concept to final. The quickest we could probably do is something like 3 months, and some will take six months or longer. The bigger ships definitely. I mean, we still haven't finished the Idris Corvette. We've been working on that for quite a while. That one's taking maybe a bit longer than it would normally take because we're using it as our sort of first cap ship prototype, and so we've been going through several rounds of R&D and quite how we're going to organize, how we're going to lay out the interiors. And as you noticed as part of the updates on, say, the Idris Corvette, once we got into laying out the interior and moving around and figuring out how it all needed to function for what we needed on Squadron 42, we sort of determined that we needed more room and space, and the ship itself grew. So there's a fair amount of iterative development that goes on the ships once you get it in. It's sort of like, oh, well, this bit doesn't work, we have to change that. But it's by far the most complex thing that we build in all the game. I mean, you can see it in the level of complexity and detail, animations that you get into the ships. So that's sort of a high-level answer of why it takes so long. But believe me, we're not holding back from putting him in the hangars if we can. We're trying to get him there as quickly as possible. There's just so many different items, and I would think that probably may be interesting in a future inside CIG or Jump Point will go into detail. We'll actually show you our multi-steps of how ships are built from the concept to the modeling and all the rest of it, because there's a lot more steps than was even shown on Next Great Starship, and you'll see the love and passion that comes into them with them. So I know they're taking a while, but they'll be worth it when they get there. Okay, next question comes from Sir Alpin Wolf, who asks, as an organization leader, I am interested in some of the future in-game organizational modules, utilities you have planned to aid in the running of the business trade side of the verse, such as accounting, market costs for resources, such as fuel, or etc. Okay, so I assume that question is about what kind of applications or interfaces we're going to allow for people to sort of manage the logistics of their organization. And the answer is we're going to do a fair amount. We're going to do a lot on our Robert Space Industries site. So we already have sort of the very beginning of the organization stuff, but that's going to expand as game features come online on the persistent universe in terms of managing the assets of the organization, the finances of it, being able to assign jobs or tasks to people, and we'll let you see a lot of that on the website. And we're also planning on building some mobile apps or tablet apps that will also allow you to sort of do that in interface and manage the logistics, check in on like who's accepted missions, what missions are out there, what the current news is in the universe. So we're definitely going to have a fairly big suite of that. Obviously it's not going to be the stuff that's like, that won't be before the stuff that's actually happening in the Precision Universe, but we do some of that in parallel. So Turbulent, who do all our web stuff and do great stuff, they're building the organization system, and then we're also going to be replicating that inside the Persistent Universe. And so that's sort of lockstep there. And then at some point, once we've got enough of a suite of that, then we'll drop that down as a specific application that'll be working on things like tablets and phones and stuff. So the idea is that even if you're not sitting at a desktop, you'll be able to sort of plug into the universe and sort of see what's happening, or maybe set up a mission for later, or manage some resources, or get notifications of stuff that's happening. So when you get back onto your desktop or powerful laptop, you'll be ready and prepared. Okay, next question comes from Zig, who asks, I was wondering what kind of landing zones will there be in Star Citizen? Will it just be mainly cities and space stations, or will we be able to also land in some desolate areas, towns in the middle of nowhere, or unique areas? There'll definitely be a fair number of cities and space stations, but we're going to also have some areas that you land that aren't necessarily a big city. So, potentially you could go to a planet and there's nothing on it, but there's an ancient ruin site, and that would be a landing area by itself, and you could explore around that, and it would have some ancient ruins, and maybe you go down into some catacombs. We're going to there'll be occasionally out in space, like, a deserted alien ship or derelict wreck or something that you could potentially explore. And longer term, we're sort of talking about more of an explorer mechanic stuff. So not short term, but the longer term. So this isn't V1, but one of our longer term sort of procedural goals is to be able to generate areas on new planets that maybe we would, once someone's found a jump point and gone to a new system, then there would be areas that we would sort of spawn that would allow people that are more sort of explorer inclined to go down and actually explore and find and discover some stuff, and try not to be sort of try and have some interest in some cool stuff down there. So that's our sort of longer term plan. So yeah, our goal is to try and create a variety of different sort of landing environments, so it sort of feels like there's a big huge galaxy out there that you're exploring. I mean, obviously we can't flesh it out to that level of detail that we're doing, at every single, that we're doing on our ships at every single centimeter. But if we have enough different locations that you go to that have different enough flavors, I think it will really sort of give you this sense of a big, living, open universe. Okay, last question comes from Chaos Brews, who asked, I had a question about a character's G tolerances over time. Will the character become more resistant to G forces, much like a real pilot would over time? And to add to this, will there be equipment such as better G suits to help you become more resistant to blacking out, redding out? Two questions there. I don't think the characters are going to become more resistant to G forces over time, because we're not really going with a sense of stats or experience for a character, because when you're playing your avatar, it's really you, and it's really about your experience and what you're doing. But having said that, there will definitely be different equipment, G suits, and that kind of stuff that you could buy or upgrade that would potentially increase your G-force limitation. So there's going to be two levels. One, which is when the level you'll black out, and two, at a certain point there'll be some stuff that ships can't handle because the space frame can't take that much force, so that would be an outer limit where the cliched version is you turn too fast and you rip a wing off. That would be like a World War I example in an old biplane. But we're definitely going to have some stuff. If you overloaded thrusters on a ship and in a certain direction or whatever, it could potentially not be as strong as another direction, and you could risk hurting your airframe, your space frame. And then obviously you having a better G suit could potentially allow you to ride the G's better than you could under default. So there you go. All right, and that's the end of another 10 for the Chairman. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'd like to thank everyone out there for backing the game and allowing us to make this game with this level of ambition. We've got a huge team around the world that is essentially making their dream game, and I'm pretty sure it's your guys' dream game too. So we're working really hard on a lot of different aspects. Right now most people are only really seeing the dogfighting side, the arena commander, and what you see in the persistent universe, what you see in the hangar, but the persistent universe and FPS and a whole bunch of other stuff's in production, and we're going to be showing you more and more of that stuff as we go along. Thank you all for backing. Thank you for the subscribers for putting the extra money in that allows us to do this extra level of community content. And I hope you enjoyed your little sneak peek of the 10-inch Constellation model. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Arena Commander t-shirt, so it's live on the store now. So if you want to get an Arena Commander t-shirt, get in there. And I will see you all next week. Bye.